Hi, welcome back to The Journey. And we have a new person with us today to hear all about her journey. And we're happy to have AnnaMarie Link.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
being here.
We are excited for lots of reasons, and I know I am. But first, let me tell about when I first met you. Okay, that was the coolest thing. It was at St. Nick's Christmas thing. What do we call it?
Breakfast.
Workshop.
Yeah.
And I was in the bakery, and you came in with all of your children. I don't know how many you have. How many do you have? Five children. And they were so orderly and so perfect, and you had them all in tow. They picked out their cookies. They paid for them. I was like, who is this woman?
Oh, gosh.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that. Yes.
I thought this woman has the touch with children, and I'm going to find out what her secret is. Well, then, lo and behold, you start working here. So tell us what your role is, and tell us what the magic is that you have with children.
So I'm the Faith Formation Coordinator here, and so I work from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade with these kiddos, and it's something that's really dear to my heart because, again, like you saw, I have 5 of my own, and they range from 10 down to 2.
Wow.
So about every 2 years, there was a new little Link coming into the picture, and it's one of those moments where I sat back and I thought, I want to give my kids a community that is lasting, and I wanted them to be excited about being a part of a program that I trusted and that I could get behind fully. And we talk a lot in the church about change and the things that we want to see happen, but how often do we actually step up and help be a part of that change?
That's true. So a lot of moaning and groaning, but not a lot of work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I realized that if I truly desired that, and Marty, my husband, and I, if we truly desired that for our family, that we had to be a part of that change. So we prayed about it, and we talked a lot about how that was going to look with me homeschooling and working, and how we would find that balance. And we decided that if the Lord presented the opportunity, then it was something that we should pursue.
Wow. And the Lord did, and you did.
And here we are.
Wow, and here we are. Oh, my goodness. So you've got, obviously, a deep faith and deep love for your children and their faith. And so we're really lucky to have you here. I shouldn't say lucky, blessed to have you here. And the faith formation that you're doing with your own kids and with the kids here at church makes me curious about how you were raised. So I'm curious, how was it? Was it similar, not similar?
So I have one older brother, and we also were homeschooled. And my parents were really involved in their parish in growing up. And I think I knew every single parish employee from the time I was 3 all the way until I started teaching CCD classes when I was in 9th grade. And so it was something that just really spoke to my heart, teaching kids about the Lord. And I think when we talk about the Lord to little ones, we have a unique opportunity because they're impressionable and you can help form them.
For sure.
So my parents really pushed the faith, but not in a way that made it unattractive and forced, but they pushed it in a way that was like, this is what leads you, this is what gets you to heaven, this is how you pursue relationship with the Lord, is by being active in your faith. You can't expect it to just happen one day. It's a gift, right? We talk about this a lot, that our faith is a gift, and we actually have to intentionally pray that our children are given that gift of faith as well. And once they're given that gift, like, how do you open that gift? And how do you really take that gift and make it your own? Because each of my kids is so unique, like their personalities are crazy, and trying to like balance their little personalities and encourage them in their faith walk. My middle child, Luciana, she's 6 and she's a spitfire. Like, from the second, we've always called her our spicy meatball, because we're Italian, and she got all of those traits. But from the time she was like 4, she just has had this deep love of the Lord. And it's like passionate, and it's practical, and it's nothing like any of my other kids' faith, right? But like each one of them has this unique gift of faith that they are bringing to the table. And I pray all the time that like I have the wisdom, and that Marty has the wisdom to help nurture those individual gifts of faith.
So is that something you saw your parents doing to some extent, or was it?
I think to some extent, yes. But my experience of faith really deepened in high school. I started experiencing retreats and Eucharistic adoration and youth conferences that really encouraged relationships, personal relationships with the Lord. Before, as I was young and I was being formed in my faith, we knew that it was important. We knew that it was necessary. We knew that it was something we should do. But we didn't encounter personal relationships with the Lord until really later on in high school. And then in college, I was blessed to go to a really Catholic college in Ohio, the Franciscan University of Steubenville, which had good moments of really encouraging your faith, but then how you bring that faith outside of the campus once you leave there. So I think a series of events, like my parents really, encouraging that faith walk early on, and the memorization and, all of those things.
All those good things.
All of those good things that are so important for little kids' development, that like sometimes we're like, oh, just go love Jesus. And for a little kid, that's not practical. But when we talk about memorization, and the kids need that. Kids need that kind of developmental consistency as they grow. And then it blossoms into something much deeper.
So, there are so many people that would listen to this and say, wow, it's just like lockstep. You just went from one wonderful thing to the next. But there are so many people that don't have that experience. I'm thinking you in high school, going off to faith conferences and all of that, there are a lot of high school kids that they wouldn't be caught dead.
Yeah.
How might you talk to somebody that comes up out of a background that's very different? How do you work with that kind of raw material?
Oh, yeah, right. And I know, like I say all the time to parents, I understand that when I talk about the faith formation of my kids, we're like the 1% of people who are educated, catechized, brought up in our faith, and didn't lose our faith, right? Like there are so many people who don't have that.
Yeah.
And I experienced that as I was a youth minister. I worked in youth ministry from the time I graduated from college all the way up until I had our first 10 years ago.
So you've seen what I'm talking about.
Yeah. And moving to Maryland from Colorado was a big leap as far as culture goes, right? The culture on the East Coast is fast-paced and academic-driven and sports-focused, and where do you fit faith into that?
I was just thinking, that is what I hear all the time in this program, where people in high school and college, because of those things, are totally distracted away from anything related to faith.
Exactly, and it's put on the back burner, and it's something that we do when we have time. And I get that because, being a parent, you constantly want what's best for your kid. And the world is so much stronger than louder than the Lord, right? The world is saying, this is what's important. Make sure your kid gets a scholarship. Make sure your kid goes to college. Make sure they have a successful relationship professionally with people. And my response is always, your first goal for your kid is heaven. That is your first goal.
It's a destination.
It is.
Concrete.
We are on a journey.
Not college. Heaven.
Right? Exactly. We're on a journey, just like this, this series. We're on a journey that doesn't end with your professional accreditation.
I love that. That's so
And
good.
you don't look back on your life. My father-in-law just passed away, and we're sitting here talking about his life and how loved he was. And my kids are like so excited that he's going to heaven. They don't care what he did. They don't care how much money he made. And that at the end of your life, those things stop mattering. But we don't like to think about death. And we don't like to think about the end, right? And so we focus on what we can control, which is academics. And so I always encourage parents, focus on heaven, and everything else falls into place. And that's a hard thing to conceptualize.
Oh, yeah.
And practically speaking, sports are still important. We still have our kids in sports. Academics are still important. We try to be rigorous with them. But at the same time, we want them to be well-rounded. And being well-rounded doesn't just mean being good at sports and being smart in school. It really, truly means being able to have conversations and respect for all walks of life, and to embrace the elderly, and to embrace the little kids, and so we look at the well-rounded picture of like a formation, and those are the things that point us to heaven. Those are the things that draw us deeper into relationship with people, as opposed to things and material possessions. So, I get a lot of flack because I don't teach my kids to read until they're 7. We read out loud, but we don't sit down and start reading until they're 7. And I get a lot of pushback from that. I get a lot of pushback. But my kids can sit and have a conversation with the 85-year-old woman at the end of our street and talk about birds and gardening and, all of those things. And they are able to enter into their childhood and develop fully. And so we don't push. We know when to push and when not to push. But our goal is relationship. And that comes in a lot of forms, right? But like with the Lord, that was what he was all about.
That's true.
He didn't sit there and say, oh, this tax collector is smarter and went to school.
He's got a degree
so
I'm
going to pull him to be my apostle. No, he took fishermen.
Yeah.
He took, he took the lowly and he brought them in. It's a cliche saying, but like God doesn't call the equipped, right? He equips the called. And so when we talk about that, like we have this unique calling, each and every one of us, to be that person that's called.